Sorry, I turned off my our connection instead of the camera.
Okay. By turning the camera off, we have narrowed the
Yeah,
band,
that's a good idea.
so perhaps we can understand better. But I don't have the advantage of your body language.
Okay.
Okay. How much of the
Okay.
point have I gotten over to you?
Okay. I understand that given just the globe without the political boundaries, just what you see, that you can tell the God's plan of salvation.
Yes. And the essence of that is that the product will always reveal the producer. One illustration of that comes down to understandable. When I was in engineering school, I worked 6 months, went to class 3 months, and went to class 3 months, alternate 3 month period. During the work period, I was working at General Dynamics, which is manufacturing airplanes. 3 month period, I worked in the illustrations department, which was an acre of large drafting boards, and it had a commercial artist seated at each board, and they were all drawing, making diagrams and building charts and all those things. In the restroom, of course, in the stalls, you had things written on the stall walls. The guy that sat there and made 2 marks on the wall just as good as put his signature on it, because you knew from the work of each of those commercial artists, anything they wrote, anything they drew, was like a signature.
Mm. Mm. Mm-hmm.
Everything you do is like your fingerprint. The product always reveals the producer. Key point.
But I still don't see how we can see the plan of salvation.
I'm launching on that now.
Oh, good.
I only have 15 minutes. I need 30. Here we go. The temperate climates are more conducive to productivity than the climates that are runaway nature. In runaway nature, I don't have to farm. I can swing off the banana trees and gather food. I don't have to prepare shelter. It's comfortable. If I get too hot, I can go for a swim. On the other hand, in temperate climates, I have winters and summers. I have springtime and fall. These are times when, like the ant, I have to take advantage of the opportunity so that I have food stored up for the time there is no food. I have to build shelters and so forth. So the temperate climates are more conducive to the growth of individual creativity and development.
Mm-hmm.
Next, let's look at the purpose for the design of the Asian continent. What are its characteristics? Broad, vast, high, deserts, harsh winters, river systems that flow to the north and are closed most of the year because of ice, a season that goes from mild to harsh to mild. It doesn't take a space scientist to recognize that what's going to be produced in the culture of that topography is a nomadic culture, one that can't, it has to keep moving because in the summer, the grass for the flocks and the herds is in the south. But in the winter it's in the south. And as spring comes, you're going to move upward, northward, to follow the grass and to put grazing. But then when the winter comes, you're going to have to move back to the south again. So that's not conducive to putting up big cities and permanent cities. Rather, it's conducive to living in tents and mobile homes.
Mm-hmm.
Living depending on the flocks. You're going to have to spend most of your energy surviving. Mm-hmm. Which is a characteristic that developed in the Asian continent.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Now let's consider Europe. In Europe, the topography is pockmarked. It has deep valleys and high, more or less friendly mountains, whereas the mountains in Asia are unfriendly to the max. They're almost impenetrable walls. But in Europe, you can cross the mountains, as Hannibal did with his elephants. You have a river system that is navigable most of the year. You have an articulate coastline so that you can sail from one coast across to another coast relatively easily. All of these things lend themselves to trade. The valleys lend themselves to individuality. One group in one valley is going to develop a skill at making cheese. Another group in another valley may develop a skill in making cloth. Yet another may develop a skill in shipmaking, shipbuilding. They are separated into different valleys, into different groups. Those groups, with their respective individual skills, will trade with one another. Trading with one another is going to raise the standard of living over that of mere survival.
Yes.
All that is discovered by it is what it is, nothing more. You can see how that would develop.
Mm-hmm.
Furthermore, as trade raises the standard of living, what's going to develop in the culture? There's going to be more time than you had when you were depending on survival. As a result, you're going to have arts, science. Arts and science originated in Asia, but they didn't blossom until they got to Europe. They developed in Europe. Europe developed music, developed mathematics, developed the seeds that were planted in Asia. They grew in Europe. Discovered as mankind was in his youth in Asia. He was in his teenage years in Europe developing. Now let's look at the topography of North America. Quite different from the topography of Asia or Europe. North America, both coasts are very inviting. Guyot used to say North America faced east. Why could he say that? If you landed on the West Coast, you'd think you'd gone to Valhalla. You'd think this couldn't get any better. Then you expanded over a mountain range or two, and you thought, oh, I'm going the wrong direction. On the other hand, if you're on the East Coast, you think, wow, this is great. Beautiful, fertile, inviting coastline, mountain ranges that are very mild, and old, haunted, fertile. Then you come into the Central Valley, the Mississippi Valley, and you discover a vast agricultural area that is held together with a single network of rivers, all drawing people together, not separating them into pockets. The whole of North America, Dio points out, is made for the development of one people, one unit, one nation.
Okay.
Dio referred to the continent of Asia as the, and this is important for you to know, get this. Continent of Asia is the continent of beginning.
Yeah.
Continent of Europe, continent of development. Continent of North America is the finest example of Christian civilization.
I'm sorry?
The finest example of Christian civilization. How we people are going to be responsible before God for what we have done to that.
Yeah.
However, it is what it is. And geographically, it remains what it is. It's still there. It hasn't been destroyed. Now, turn in shock to page 7. No, I'm sorry. Turn in shock to page 6A. 6A in shock.
Okay.
Here, Miss Hall is describing the westward chain of Christianity. It started in Asia. It developed in Europe. It blossomed in North America. As you look at the history of revival across North America, the first and second great revivals, the Azusa Street revival, each of those major revivals in the continent of North America were reaching, each one in its turn, westward until we get to Los Angeles at Azusa Street. I submit that line on a globe is pretty close to a great circle. If you trace that line on a globe, it's pretty close to a great circle. And as you extend that great circle, as she did in her diagram, it extends across Asia, the Indian subcontinent, Muslim world. In fact, that's a training word again. I'll pause for a comment.
This is something that I have known about, and I think I see what you're saying. I just want to mention though that we did have a question, and in our study of the 18 and 1900s, and I don't know if we're looking too closely, but what we saw in the 18 and 1900s is that things were really going on in Europe and then degrading in America, which is just the opposite of what. But I think maybe we were too close.
Ms. Hall points out that America started backsliding shortly after they adopted the Constitution. And she says they backslid into a civil war. While slavery was being eliminated everywhere else in the world, America was the only nation that eliminated slavery with a bloody civil war. Ms. Hall has this interesting comment. She says the Civil War, in its essence, was nothing more than a war between pride in the South, self-righteousness in the North. Slavery was the excuse.
So what was the excuse?
Slavery.
Wow.
The war was to be fought anyway between pride in the South and self-righteousness in the North.
Huh.
Plus, the nation had backslid from the day that they ratified the Constitution.
Okay. Then that makes sense.
The high point was at the ratification of the Constitution. That was America's high point. And she has yet to blossom into what I believe God had in mind when the Constitution was ratified. It's that hope that I have and I live with. I want America to blossom, and as a result of the blossoming, to launch the rest of that great circle that Ms. Hall has described in that diagram on page 6A. Across Asia, the India, the Muslim world. Because 2/3 of the world population rests either side of that dotted line. And it's unlike the character of my God to leave them out.
Yeah. I didn't understand that. So the chain side is the side that has the gospel, and then the little tick marks is the side that does not?
We have seen a growth of we've seen a greater and greater and greater and greater and greater understanding of biblical self-government principles.
Mm-hmm.
Christianity, the essence of Christianity is choose you now who you will serve.
Mm.
The essence of Christianity is a choice. Christ introduced choice to Christianity. Before that, it was law only. Christ set us free to make choices. The difference between the Old Testament and the New Testament. Between Judaism and Christianity. A Christian Jew is a completed Jew. He's been set free.
Yes.
And if you look at what's happened with Christianity, and each of the little links in that chain, going all the way to Azusa Street,
Mm-hmm.
each of those links has been a little bit of growth.
Mm.
As you look at the details of each of those reformations, as each of those things, there's a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more has been added. God has been revealing and revealing and revealing.
Mm.
Just when you were first born again, God had shown you then all the things he was going to change in your life. You would have said, no way, you can't get there from here. If God had shown the Israelites all the things he was going to reveal in Azusa Street, they would have freaked out.
Yeah.
A different language. If he showed us today all the things he's going to demonstrate in Asia, India, the Muslim world, I'm inclined to think we'd probably freak out. But it's out there, and I believe it's going to happen. And it's going to be launched just as each of these previous links in the chain was launched. It's going to be launched from the west coast of North America.
Wow. That's right, from what you see. You're right. I mean, I know you're right. And that is, I want to tell you, way back when I started with Principle Approach, I completely believed it. And through the years, I've come to be discouraged. But now that I see what you're saying and getting reminded, you're absolutely right. It has to happen.
Remember, it took God 1,620 years to make a pilgrim. All right, we need to finish up. What I recommend you do, just for your own personal enjoyment, go back to page 141 in P&L. P&L page 141.
Okay.
And read the next 5 or 6 pages. Read for enjoyment. Don't make notes. Just read for enjoyment.
Okay, I'll do that.
I think you'll be blessed. Here comes an emphatic result.
Okay.
As God never violates the principle of individuality, comma, it follows that anything founded upon collectivism is ungodly and will not produce good, that is, godly fruit.
Okay.
What I'm saying is that God never disregards individuality. And the best illustration of that is the mediocrity that's produced by standardized education and the mediocrity in production that's produced by a labor union. Both violate the individuality of the student or the participant.
Thank you.
I love Kaddish. Oh, what a blessing.
Yes.
God bless you.
God bless you. Thank you so much.
I'll see you on Wednesday.
Okay. Goodbye.